Awesome.
As soon as
Thanks,
we're
Raja.
recording, of
Cool.
course.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm Kelsey White. I'm the Director of Revenue Operations here at G&W. I'm going to preemptively apologize if you hear a cat meowing in the background. He is vocal today, and I'm not sure that he likes the rain. So anyway, what we're going to focus on today is we're going to have a conversation around Adobe Marketo Engage's latest release for advanced BI analytics. In terms of the agenda today, we're going to cover what is advanced BI analytics, what are some of the 9 key report areas, what are some of the out-of-the-box reports that come with advanced BI analytics, and then we'll look at some of the visualization components within the platform itself. And then we'll talk about some of the common questions as well that have come up as we've started some early conversations with our clients. So what is advanced BI analytics? I think first and foremost, this has had many names in the past through Marketo and Adobe, maybe formerly known as Revenue Explorer, RCE, Advanced Report Builder. So I'm sure you all are familiar with its former identities in one way or another. But essentially, Advanced BI Analytics is an advanced reporting capability for Marketo Engage customers to dig deeper into their data. You're reporting across 9 key areas, including program analysis, email analysis, lead and opportunity analysis. And I will preemptively apologize for the amount of times I say the word analysis. Put a quarter in the jar every time it comes up. It might be $10 by the end of this. And then with advanced BI analytics, it is built, each of the 9 areas is built on its own purpose-driven data model, which is fantastic for us to be able to dig in and understand the output of our efforts. And then there are out-of-the-box reports for each area that can be used as is or thought of as a template to then customize for your reporting needs. I think that's, a pretty common case is that customers will leverage what is existing, and then they'll just make those modifications relative to their specific KPIs, just kind of depending on the question that we're trying to answer. And then ultimately, advanced BI analytics will help with optimization for marketing and operations while helping with communication to stakeholders or your C suite on performance. So, pretty straightforward. So, what are the 9 key reporting areas? This should seem very familiar to you. This is something that is not changing with this new rollout, but you have email and lead analysis, you've got model performance analysis by companies and leads, opportunity analysis, as I mentioned previously, and then, of course, the analysis against your programs, whether that's looking at cost, membership, opportunities, or your revenue stages. And then in terms of the out of the box reports, so there are 29 reports that come with advanced BI analytics. So you'll notice that some of them are, really focused on your email reporting, your lead reporting, your opportunity or programs. So you're going to be able to quickly leverage like, click activity, open activity, or maybe look at first touch influence on your opportunities, or even look at it from a multi-touch influence view. Again, very modifiable reports, just kind of depends on what are we answering, and then adjust to your needs, or of course start from scratch. It all just kind of comes down to what's that question, and then let's work backwards to answer that. And so actually I'm going to jump out of this and get into advanced BI analytics, because there's really not much to say there other than I think actually like looking at the platform. So let me get in here. Are you guys seeing, or Raja, can you confirm, are we seeing the advanced BI analytics
Yep.
tab? Cool, perfect. So when you log into your Marketo instance, if you have access to this platform, it has been rolled out already as of, I believe, last week. And Raja, keep me honest there, but should have been
Yeah,
rolled out.
it's they're doing a progressive rollout, so if you
Yeah,
don't see it inside your instance, you can file a support ticket if you really wanna get access to it. It is
perfect.
based off on, I think, on Power BI, I think is the
That's what it's,
baseline of this one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the data, so the I guess like the focus with this advanced BI rollout is optimizing performance and creating flexibility and ease of use for more ad hoc customized reporting. And so when we get into the builder, if you've used Power BI before, you're probably gonna be like, oh, this is very familiar. But also, aside from the Power BI component, the new data is actually, or the data is actually built on Snowflake, which allows for better performance. And so the data and the reports will load more quickly than maybe you've experienced in the past. But first thing, when you log into your Marketo instance, you will see, if you've got access to it, you'll see the Advanced BI Analytics tile that you then can click on, and you'll be brought to this Reports tab. And so what is going to happen is that if you have any previous reports that you have built in RCE, Revenue Explorer, whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it, we're flexible. Those will be carried over into the new Advanced BI Analytics. The folder structure has not been rolled out yet here with this new reporting capability, but it will be available in the near future. But you'll notice in the report names for any of your existing reports that the folder structure is actually kind of highlighted in the name, and it then is followed by a forward slash. So it's like standard reports was the folder, and then top 10 leads or whatever it may be. But you can quickly search between your reports, just depending on, maybe I had regional reports that I like to look at on a monthly basis. You can obviously like type in here region, and it's going to bring up what we need. And so realistically, it should be a much faster reporting platform. But if I want to create a report, I think that's what most of you guys care about. It's like, cool, show me. You'll notice as you create report in the top right tab that you have then those 9 reporting areas that we talked about earlier. And so you can just select, what is it that I want to understand? I think today we'll kind of look at some of the email analysis, but very easy to just switch between them. And then, of course, we're going to name the report. For the sake of this, I'm going to just name it testing, because that just allows for me to remember what to remove afterward and clean up our instance. And so once I confirm here, I will then be brought into the actual report builder. And so it takes a second to load. First thing that you'll notice, and so again, like if you've got Power BI experience, you should just be like, oh, Kels, yeah, this is easy peasy. But you'll notice on the right, you've got 3 panes. You've got the data pane, you have visualizations and filters. And so the data pane is where you'll select the different measures and metrics and dimensions. The visualizations is just where you select what type of visualization that I want to use, whether that's a pie chart, a donut, a bar chart. Obviously, it kind of just comes down to like what is going to make the data understood best for you all when you're putting in that visualization. And then the third pane that you've got here is your filters. So you guys are actually going to be able to apply filters to, reports on a specific page, or if you create multiple pages for reports, you can apply filters to all of those pages. And so over on the right, let's talk about the data, right? So you've got your email measure, or excuse me, you've got your measures. Let's look at, for the sake of today's call, we're going to look at percentage of open versus unsubscribed. So obviously I can search in here pretty easily and just type in those values. Or if I know the nested group, I can just expand that pretty easily. So I'm going to select open, and I'm going to select unsubscribe. Pretty easy. Perhaps we also want to, oh no. Of course. Let me refresh.
It wouldn't be Marketo if it didn't have an error during a
I
rollout or you
know.
needed to
And
refresh
it's
the
funny because I
platform.
was testing it out earlier, Raja, and it worked perfectly.
That's how it works.
I know. So, hey, you know what though? It did save my draft, which is great. So in theory, I shouldn't have to start completely over from scratch. But okay, here we go. We're going to do opened and unsubscribed. And you'll notice it immediately is just, oh, biscuits. Oh, no. Let me do something. Let me just log out and log back in, and we'll try it again. Sorry, guys. Nothing like doing it live, right? Okay, 1 second. This is so funny. And I thought, I was so prepared coming into this, doing a couple of just playing around with
No,
it this morning.
I don't even think it's so much of that. So
No, no, no.
once this gets rolled out, a couple things to know about traditional Marketo reporting versus the newer version like of RCE. It is a combination. Andrew, yeah, we've all been there. It is a combination of all of those, right? So it is a really cool because since it's a BI tool built in, the analytics that you're getting is a compilation of campaign influence, revenue cycle analytics, and just your general day-to-day email performance.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to try sharing again. Take 2, everyone. We're just going to ignore what happened the last 2 minutes. Okay. All right. Are you all seeing You are seeing it. Okay, perfect. So let's try it again. We're going to do some email measures. We're going to do percentage of opened versus unsubscribed. And you'll notice that it just immediately is pulling in a small kind of widget view in here that you can move around. We can also make this larger, kind of depending on the size that we want on this particular page. And then you can quickly like filter or adjust the view by just like switching to like a stacked column if we wanted, or we can look at it this way as well. Perhaps what we want to do is actually apply a time period against this. So like we could do time frame sent, and we could do sent quarter. And what you'll notice is that all of those values are being pulled into the visualization section. So you can see the y-axis versus the x-axis. And then over in the filters, like it's just going to default to all of the data that fits within that metric or that measure. I don't want to look at all quarters. Like that's kind of crazy. What I'm going to do actually is select maybe the 2025 and the last 2 quarters of Q4. And as I'm filtering on that, it's just going to then update the view pretty immediately. And it'll just continue to process as I make adjustments within here. So pretty straightforward. In this scenario, in this instance, right, we don't have a lot of unsubscribe. We have a high open rate, but not a lot of unsubscribe, which is great. We like to see that as a performance. And then ultimately, like I said, you can change the visualizations pretty easy, but maybe what I want to do is actually build out a multi-page report. And I want to look at the percentage of open and unsubscribed by the original source type. So down at the bottom, what you'll notice is that you've got a new page. So you've got page 2 here. And again, I can just go back up in here, and now I'm going to select, again, the same metrics, open, unsubscribed, but I'm also going to add in, I'm going to add in the original source type. And I don't remember where that is placed for us. It's under the lead attributes. So I'm going to select that here, but quickly searching brought that up for us. Tiny chart does me no good when I don't have my glasses on. And so doing that allows me to quickly see like by sources, or by the source type, what does that percentage allocation look like for opened and unsubscribed? And maybe what we want to do is incorporate a level of interactivity to this. So in the visualizations, as you scroll down, you'll notice that you have drill throughs here. And so what we could do is add in that drill through for sent quarter, and you can drag these over pretty easily. And then as we go back to page 1, if we right click on one of these quarters, you'll notice that you have the drill through here, and it drills through to page 2. And so that is then immediately going to drill into that data for Q2 versus looking at all of the data. So pretty straightforward. You can continue to add visuals to each of the pages. So if I wanted to create another visual, I could just clicked right here, and it's immediately going to start building out another visual for me. Maybe I want to look at this by a pie chart, and I want to see, just like the number of clicks, which it's 100%. That's maybe not the best example, but you can see that it is pretty easy to continue to add visuals. And then over here, you can quickly remove as well, or perhaps you can change it to look at this as a table. Another component as you look at these is that you do have that export option. So when you export the data, you can do this as a summarized view. You can look at the underlying data, and it'll come in as an Excel or a CSV. But one other cool thing actually about the new view or the new BI analytics platform is that you can also export this information as a PowerPoint or a PDF. So up in the top right corner, if you click the 3 dots, you click export, you can select the format in which you want to export this report. If we select PowerPoint, as an example, it takes about 20 to 30 seconds for it to fully export. And of course, I've got my error populating for me, but it would export this as a PowerPoint. And if I have multiple pages in a report, each page will be its own slide within PowerPoint. If I have multiple visualizations on a page, each of those visualizations would be represented on a single slide. But that makes it easy for you to then pull that data into maybe a deck that you're working on for your C-suite or your stakeholders. So you're not having to take screenshots out of here. You can just simply export it as a chart into PowerPoint. And I mean, ultimately, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, Raja, like, I'm not sure what else I want to say here because it's like, it seems
Yeah.
like personally, like I find this to be much easier to use. I've my history and background just for everyone on the meeting. I've more so focused on like reporting in BI platforms or in attribution platforms. So I haven't spent a ton of time in the Marketo reporting tools, but just getting into this over the last couple of weeks, I have found the ease of use to be very straightforward. I'm already looking forward to working on this with a number of clients just to kind of see what visualizations we can build out for them. But
But
the
I think the cool thing about this is really that the built-in native like BI, like the visual version that everyone's been kind of asking for from a Marketo
Mhm.
perspective, it provides and it consolidates one reporting platform compared to
Yep.
the traditional just email performance, which is still there, mind you. But when we really start getting into influence, last touch, first touch, before we get very deep down the rabbit hole of multi-touch attribution, which is a
Mhm.
complete, a conversation on its own, this actually gives you what most marketing leads are essentially looking for, and it's a way to visualize it and convert it directly into a presentation to present to like the executive leadership or to the directors or senior directors, whoever they are. So I think it's really good. Obviously there's, just like with any new product, there's obviously a couple of rollout items, but the level of personalization and the level of customization that you get in this is far, for a native report builder, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I would agree. But yeah, and
Any questions?
yeah,
I mean, feel free to ask. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. I know webinars are usually, hey, one person talks and shares their screen, and everyone's like, "Cool, yay!" But like, is there reporting? Well, I mean, that's generally what webinars are, right? Like, but
sure.
like, are there reports that you're looking for? An additional cost for this feature, Andrew. That's one question I don't know.
So
The
it
cost, the cost.
it is, and I'll chime in there because
Yeah.
I did get to like chat with the product team or not chat with the product team,
Okay.
but I listened to the
Okay.
product team demo this. So if you already had like the previous add-on of like RCE, you're just going to be automatically transitioned to the advanced BI analytics. But if you didn't have that before, this is an add-on that is priced accordingly to what they like previously were pricing it. So that is a value, like I would say, like a pretty big value add for the Adobe customers on Marketo Engage is that if you've already had it, like you're not looking to have to like pay for an upgrade or anything along those lines. And then, like I mentioned earlier, your reports that you already had are going to just automatically flow over. And so once you are migrated, you should be able to go in and search and see like what you had previously and then maybe make some modifications to the new BI tool. Cool. Any other questions?
Are there reports that you guys are looking for, or maybe reports that are hard to justify minus email performance reports, right? Is there anything that we can kind of help just in general answer question wise? If not, then 23 minutes, not too bad.
Yeah, and I would say that with that too, Raja, is like, we're happy to have like one-on-one conversations. Like if there's like you're like, I want to talk about this, but I don't want to like I don't want to like tell everyone my business. That's fine. We respect
That's
that.
pretty cool.
And so we're here to like have those conversations and just kind of talk about it. As I mentioned earlier, I am working with a client now. We just went through kind of some of their reporting KPIs that they hadn't had visibility into previously. And so we're working on a project to get that built out in advanced BI. And so if you're interested in a call about that and just like kind of understanding like where G&W could help, like feel free to reach out. We're happy to do it. And actually, let me just go back to the deck to talk about some of the common questions I've already answered, but I'll just like reiterate that so that way you guys can see it. Um, so what are those common questions? Will my reports carry over? Yeah. So again, they will carry over. Folder structure is going to be indicated in the name. What's not changing? The data models, the 9 reporting areas, and the 29 reports that come out of the box. And then, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Snowflake is the data warehouse that the platform is built on, which I'm a big fan of because I think, sometimes when it's one of the more frustrating parts about reporting is like waiting for the data to load. And then, like, you see it all load and you're like, oh, nuts, I need to make a pivot or I need to do this. And then waiting for it to load. You could see the performance was pretty fast for us to be able to generate some of those visualizations. And then obviously, if you're familiar with Power BI, that should have looked very familiar to you. But one thing that I heard from like the Adobe product team is like to get even more familiarized with it, there are obviously like Power BI courses out there that you might want to consider taking just to kind of understand that platform structure. And that will then translate into Adobe Marketo Engage pretty easily. And then, as we indicated, you can export these as PDFs or PowerPoints, or if you're looking at a specific chart. So the visualizations, PDF or PowerPoint. But if you're looking at a specific chart, you can obviously export that as a CSV or an Excel. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and then for anyone that's curious, I'm gonna real quick in chat put a link to our analytics and attribution items that Kelsey was talking about. So if there is anything that you guys need help with, we have a very specific just analytics kind of a service offering that we could actually dive into any BI platform. And even if we need to connect data dots, it's very specifically geared towards marketing, kind of like a soft sell. Sorry, I know it's a webinar, but since there's no more questions and there's no questions, I might as well throw it out there, right? That's just how it works. If you will, feel free to ask any questions to Kelsey. Kelsey's been doing it. I just realized we should have probably started with intros.
I thought I said my title.
Did you say his title? I don't know. Maybe
I
we
think
did.
so. Well, if
No,
not, I'm Kelsey. I'm the Director of
yeah.
Revenue Operations here at G&W. Just a little context of my background. Prior to being at G&W, I actually was an employee of Adobe through the acquisition of Marketo and by way of Visible. So kind of grew up on attribution, if you will. And then Raja was like, hey, come join G&W and work on
Yeah.
fun projects again. And I said, that sounds like a blast. So let's
So
do it.
if you do need any help with reporting or analytics and actually, especially multi-touch attribution, once we get down that route, Kelsey is pretty much your point two person. I think she was pretty much in the attribution game when it first started. I do have the link in chat. We're going to stick around here probably for another 3 minutes. Thanks everyone for joining. If anyone has any questions, Andrew, thank you for putting it on there. Please ask us some questions. Ask Kelsey some questions. If not, thanks everyone for joining. And once the recording gets done, we'll send that out.
Great.
How's your cat?
I'm like, do we include that in the webinar recording? He's good. He's over here somewhere. I don't know. Probably asleep, as they do, as cats do
Yeah,
during the day.
I know, right?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
wish
Like,
it's the life to live, right? I would like that. The rain
yeah,
has stopped. Oh, no, it didn't. Actually, just kidding. It looked like it stopped, but it's still raining.
yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't rain here, especially in Arizona, especially over the summer. Our monsoon season's going to start here pretty soon, though. So
That's pretty terrifying, though, right?
monsoons, I love monsoons. If this hasn't been rolled out to you guys,
When can we
when
expect it to? So,
yeah, it's a support ticket. I would probably say if you have RCE,
yeah.
or if you have any of those platforms, it will get rolled out. But if it hasn't been rolled out and you do have those RCEs, I would just file a support ticket and say if they can't roll it out to your instance.
Yeah, Linda, they started with like it was like a regional based rollout. So like I
Yeah.
know that they started with like EMEA first, but we are seeing some US based customers already getting access to it or North America based customers. And so yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, like I know that they started this like I think it was 2 weeks ago. But I would just like Raja said, open a support ticket and they should be able to expedite you, maybe to the top of the list because you've got excitement to use it.
Because I did, our interactive webinars that we're using was was something that I filed a support ticket for to get interactive webinars inside our instance prior to like whenever this rollout was, so we could do a demo on this environment just in general as well. So if you've
Okay.
already had it, and I mean, I would just file a support ticket. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah, the worst they could say is like, "No," and that your release is coming up in a couple days, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I have seen some customers get access pretty
Yeah,
quick.
of course. Thank you for asking a question. I feel like live webinars need to come back. Like, remember, like when people would have so many questions on the webinars, and you
You
know,
you could be
it'd
on,
be
like, a
interactive.
group, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I think
Yep.
you know what I think for the next webinar we're gonna do is I think we're gonna send everyone a shot of tequila on a Friday.
I have been on, like, learnings, like, sessions like that before where they send you, like it's like, "We're gonna learn how to make this, like,
Yeah,
cocktail during the session," and there were, like,
like a
alternative, like,
Paloma.
mocktail options and stuff like
Yeah,
that for people that didn't, imbibe, but it was a good
yeah.
time. Mhm.
Cool. All right, guys. So thanks everyone for sticking around. I'm gonna go and hit exit here. Thank you very much, Kelsey. When the recording gets out, we'll go and remove all the cat talk and the drinking talk and focus on the analytics stuff and send it out.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.